what's up guys, it's Jared from the Mystic Eye. So in this video I'm going to talk about energetic enmeshment. I'm going to define what energetic enmeshment is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it happens and the whole process behind it. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how you can really just cut those cords and those ties that are no longer serving your highest interest as an evolutionary being that's trying to climb the ladder of being. So let's get into it. You may have heard me in the past from my other video, Energetic Connections, say that we essentially are our connections or our relationships. And that concept still holds true. So if you haven't seen that, definitely watch that video first, because a lot of that work is the foundational work for this video. Energetic enmeshment is basically how we get tangled in life. It's how our relationships can form into things that aren't really necessary or no longer providing us what we need. Every relationship that we form is based off of a mutual need, and it's either done consciously or unconsciously. Energetic enmeshment happens when that relationship no longer is serving one being. If it weren't serving both beings and both beings knew it, or like a being with an organization that can be that way as well, then it's not really a problem. But it becomes a problem when one thing wants to move on and the other doesn't want to let go. That's when energetic enmeshment occurs. In order to understand this, we first have to redefine what a relationship is. Basically, a relationship is something that you're in relationship with. You have a relation with it. So, for instance, your lungs are in relationship with the trees. I mean, the trees release oxygen and your lungs need oxygen, and then your lungs are in relation with your blood. If your feet are in relation with the ground, there's really no separateness between any of these things. We're all actually one on one level, but on the physical and in our mind, we think we're separate. So when you can raise your awareness to certain stages, you'll find that there's really no you. We think of ourselves as walking around in an environment, but really the environment is us, and it's our consciousness is just concentrated or located on one part of the environment, and we call that ourselves. So what is this energetic enmeshment in relation to environment and you as a person or a being? Every being has a need. Plants need the sun. We need plants. So life happens this way. It's all one, and everyone's giving and taking in some form or another. Energetic enmeshment happens when one form is giving and another form is taking, and then it becomes unequal, and one thing wants to move on, but the other doesn't. And this can be really problematic, and it's problematic because a lot of the times the foundational work is unconscious. And many times when we have needs, we don't even realize that we actually have them. I mean, I've had needs in the past, but before I was not really an emotional person. Most of my awareness was just purely in the physical. And then once I started becoming more aware of my emotional needs, the relationships that I had formed were all just based around the physical. It was based around that old self. So I needed deeper people in my life. It's kind of like that. You got to let go as you change and you grow. You have to let go of the past, whether it's past jobs, past relationships to organizations or people. And this is only natural. It's a completely natural part of life. It's how life occurs. At the physical level, everything is energy, but it appears separate. And it's hard to see the connections, but at the energetic level, you can really see the connections easy. In fact, you can actually see the tubes or threads of energy going from one thing to another, and it can easily tell you about how that relationship functions and whether it's healthy or not. So literally, wherever you're going, you're weaving these threads. They're like connections that you make all over. You're making connections with the trees, you're making connections with the sun, you're making connections with people. And wherever you have more intense life energies going, the stronger that connection is going to be. Emotions have different intensities and different vibrations and different flavors. The more intense emotion that you have with that object, then naturally the more connection you're going to have to it. So for instance, let's say that you only have one person in your life, and this person means a whole lot to you. Well, you're going to have a really strong connection to them because that's all that you have. So there's going to be a lot of energy flowing between you two. Maybe the other person isn't aware of it, they probably will be, but there's just a lot of energy going that way. But maybe you're one of those people who just has a lot of friends everywhere, but they're not really that deep. There's not really that many deep connections. You find this in some people, some people who have really deep connections and who are very deep have maybe 2 or 3 really important people in their life, and that's it. But then you find that people who really kind of live on the surface and aren't as deep, they might have a lot of friends and they have a lot of connections, but those connections, there's not a lot of energy exchange going on. It's kind of like a quantity quality. The more qualitative relationships you have, the deeper they are, the more life energies are going between the two. But then the more quantity you have, then the less energy you have going into those relationships. Energetic enmeshment happens when we use our energies in unconscious ways. We all have needs, so when 2 beings or a being in an organization come together, let's say you need money, so you go to work for an organization, and so you make a contract on the energetic level. I would do this amount of energy work, and you give me this amount of money so I can go acquire other resources of energy, food, shelter. So all those are connected. With energetic enmeshment, what happens is one of the beings, whether it's between 2 people or a person in an organization, outgrows the thing, and it realizes that it is no longer necessary or in its highest interest to stay in relationship with that entity, whether it be a person or an organization. Naturally, the person wanting to leave is going to feel pulled in 2 directions. In one sense, he or she knows that if they leave, it'll be best for them. But in another sense, they feel obligated to stay in that position because that's what they know. And secondly, the person or organization may be throwing out other things to keep them in the relationship. A lot of the times they point to the past, or they put them on guilt trips, or they say, hey, look at this, like we did all this together. How can you just throw all this away? Or what about all these times? They will always point to the past, and that's your number 1 indicator that it's something that you should let go of, because they're not pointing you to a future. The things that have your highest interest at heart are never going to point you back to something in the past. They're going to point you into a new direction. They're going to say, hey, yeah, go for it, go for this, go for that. Things that are trying to hold on to you, they're going to try to hold on to you by pointing back to your memory. And your memory is essentially just that. It's just a memory. It's just the past. The past can never be recreated. People can change, but when you form an energetic connection, you form under certain conditions, and then those conditions change, and you change as a being. Some people, they can grow together like this and side by side. At one point, somewhere in evolution, one being is going to go up and the other one's going to go down. It's just natural. You're going to start going out of sync. And when that happens, you're both going to feel it. And if you formed that relationship in an unconscious manner, when one being wants to leave, this person will feel it, or organization will feel it, and they'll want to hang on to you. They'll literally want to suck your energy, and it's not maybe on a conscious level, but they'll start sucking your energy, and you might start feeling drained, and that's why you really feel like you need to get away from them. Even though you have this connection with them, this really deep connection with them, you realize it's no longer valid, it's no longer necessary. You're craving a higher connection. These types of energetic enmeshment situations are commonplace. Many happen in relationships between husband and wife. Many parents even feed off their own children. A lot of times when there's a lot of anxiety between a husband and a wife, they'll bring a child into the relationship. It's called triangulation. And what that child does is it relieves the anxiety between the husband and the wife. So the husband and wife don't want to consciously face the problems and the anxiety. So they bring in a third party to kind of ease that process. And so what happens is when the child comes in, then all the problems are dumped off the child, and both parents can use the child as kind of a scapegoat to avoid their own problems and issues. This essentially has been happening generation by generation for a really long time. This is Carl Jung himself even said that children are doomed to live out the unconsciousness of their parents, or they're doomed to repeat it. So you can either choose to face the unconsciousness of your parents, which is within your being, it's recorded in there, or you can just continue the pattern. So So what do you have to do in order to get out of an energetic enmeshment situation? Well, number one, first you have to consciously state and renegotiate the terms of your relationship. And by terms, I mean cutting it, if that's what your desire is. You have to say out loud to that person or that entity / organization, this is what's going to happen, this is what I need, and this is what you're not providing for me. When you clearly state that in the physical, it sends a message. It sends a message on the physical and on the energetic level. It basically puts up a block and it says, here are the prerequisites and the conditions for the relationship. You are no longer meeting them. We need to part ways. And that might be really hard to do, and the person or organization may keep going on, and you might have to do that a couple times, but if you do it enough, they'll get the message. The crazy thing about the world is, whatever you do, people are forced to deal with it. You can show up however you want. Many of the times people think you have to be a certain way or act a certain way. Have you ever noticed when, you break up with like a friend or something like this, and then you come back after years later, they still expect you to be the same person, but you're no longer the same. And so they just are forced to accept that change, and they have to adapt to it. Like I said, we are our connections. And so when you change, and you go back into those old relationships and you find yourself repeating same patterns or being that old type of person, you don't have to do that. You can go into back into those old relationships as the person you are now, and people will have to adapt to the new you. It's completely normal. People change and grow and evolve. Alright, secondly, on the energetic level, a cut needs to be made. If you're choosing to end the relationship, then on the energetic level, you have to cut the cord, basically. And you can do this symbolically. Go home, be alone with yourself, bring that person or that organization up in your mind. Get out a notebook and a piece of paper and a pen, and write down the conditions. Say what you're doing. Put your intention down. Put your intention on the paper, and then visualize it, that thing, that entity, that person in your mind, and connect the two together. And then if you need, get out a knife or a sword and literally cut the cord. Symbolically, what it's doing is it's reprogramming our mind, our body, our consciousness in relation to those things. Write to that person or that organization or entity that you're connected to, and establish the new basis or the new guidelines or rules for your relationship, or the lack of one. And then burn the pages. You may need to do this a couple of times, but it's really going to help you just kind of release whatever that energy is that's connected to you. Energetic enmeshment essentially happens because as humans we have needs. We have various types of needs: financial needs, emotional needs, physical needs. And other people fill those needs, and organizations fill those needs as well. It happens when you form these relationships to fulfill your needs in unconscious levels or in unawareness. A lot of times in that unconsciousness, we have a need that we're unaware of, but that we're reaching out in the darkness and stumbling around for someone to basically catch us. And then someone does, or an organization does, and then it's just a lifesaver in the moment, but we don't establish the laws and the guidelines for making that relationship happen in a conscious way. So in order to avoid energetic enmeshment in your future relationships, it's really good just to do 3 things. First, right off the bat, state your needs. State why you're coming to that person or to that organization clearly and concisely and consciously. 2, state your expectations. What do you expect out of the relationship? What do you expect to get, and what do you expect to give? And then finally, 3, conditions of release. Conditions of release are important because eventually the relationship will be terminated, whether in this life or the next. All things come to an end, and it's inevitable. So when you have these 3 things laid down from the start, then you can really establish the entire relationship on good lines. That way there's no shocks or miscommunication along the way. And these guidelines and these things can be restated or remade throughout the relationship. You can revisit them however you want based off of needs changing, because they do. But it's just important to at least have this all conscious and in the front, so everyone is on the same page and everything can run more smoothly. Alright guys, that's all I have for this time. I wish you the best. I just really hope you apply some of these techniques and just think about them, because it can really help you save a lot of pain in your life, and it can really help you along the way just establishing good connections and good relationships in all areas of your life. Alright guys, I wish you all the best. With light and love. Namaste.